Well, I wanted to just start off by suggesting that I have a great deal of respect for the people that I studied with back in the 60s, and likewise a great deal of respect for the people that I encountered at Emma Lake, and through those contacts, getting exposure to art really around the world. One of the things I learned from them is that in order to really do good art, one has to actually get out from behind other people, and in a sense get out of the ruts that have been so frequently dug into the ground, and you have to forge your own path. I'm a bit of a slow learner on this. It's taken me a long time to digest that information. Perhaps I see, well indeed, I see still a lot of influence showing up in my work. However, I actually do think that I have gone off the path a little bit, and I'm trying to work towards my own goals. One of the other key factors is that you don't, by getting off the path, it doesn't mean that your end goal changes from all the people that have gone before you. Really, the end goal has to be making some good art. It's just that in order to do so, you don't want to, you cannot get to it by mimicking the art of others. Well, I think there's a noticeable change in the nature of these works from previous exhibitions that I've had. And whether or not it's evident, I feel a slight change in attitude within myself in terms of how I approach painting. And really the change in attitude, to a great extent, I think, came about when I did this picture, the Red Studio. Essentially, the painting came about by accident. I had stretched raw canvas over thin plywood strips, and then stained over the canvas. In some cases several times, and in other cases just once or twice, and had laid a few panels, canvas-covered panels, over top of a kind of a base grouping of panels, and had leaned them against the wall just out of sort of for practical reasons. It's 8 feet high and about 6.5 feet wide. And also, in the leaning process, I placed them on a couple of 2x4s, and even looking at or taking into account the intervals between the panels, which are fairly casual, I essentially just left them alone. There's a bit of adjusting, but I wanted a sense of sort of natural and somewhat random placing. Anyway, the end result was that not only did I feel that there was a unification within the piece, a sort of natural, if I can use that word again, unification. The composing, if you will, was not the way I had traditionally gone about composing, and then the leaning of the work against the wall seemed to, in some manner, set it apart from my attitude to previous paintings. One of the changes in approach that I feel that I'm going through is that in looking at the exhibition, there's quite, on the surface, there's quite a variety of different, let's say, compositions, for lack of other words. The example of the grid behind me is a case in point. I don't see it as being, in essence, really different from the others, other than the actual layout, if you will. The approach is very much the same. And one of the essences, if I have it right myself, one of the essences that I'm interested in is actually eliminating the sort of traditional approach to composing, whereby the artist would place object to object to object, or color or shape to shape to shape, and take into account the negative spaces, etc., etc. It's the traditional Western approach to painting that has gone on for I guess centuries, really. My interests seem to have moved away. I freely admit that's the background that I come from, and I pursued it for many years. However, more recently, I've come to the conclusion that composition, if you will, is sort of what you make of it. I'm much more interested in having in achieving a sense of unity, a kind of a singular unit, if you will, something that adds up to, I'll use the word, a thing or a structure in and of itself, which is more about the outward overall appearance rather than a kind of an interior. By interior, I mean the play of shapes within the edges of the canvas. But I'm more interested in having the canvas itself, or the thing itself, be what the picture is about, rather than a play of sort of somewhat separate or individual components. One of the obvious factors, or if you will, I'll use the word concepts behind these pictures. And by the way, I don't want to confuse anybody by using the word concept. I start off with a concept, but I can't remember the last time that concept actually worked it, ended right there. I have to work on these pictures sometimes for months on end. So the initial concept is really just a starting point, not an end in itself. And part of my interest, my personal interest, is that I want these pictures to somehow have a substance that carries, not just immediately as a concept might, but to carry over the long haul. And one of the things that I do, just because I have to, it seems, is that I overpaint perhaps many times, 30, 40 times over on occasion, sometimes with the same color paint. Other times I lay down with certain colors thinking they're going to be the right color, and then I overpaint with either thick paint or thin stains or whatever. It keeps on changing until I get to a sense of something that I like. What I think this does is that it imparts a certain history. There is a literal, physical history often evident in the work, partly because they can get fairly thick, but also because there's inflections in the paint, and the history of the many layers is somehow continued through to the end result. The end result is edited down quite extensively, almost, I guess, I'm pushing it to use the word minimalist here, but it's edited down to a few what I feel are essential elements. One of those elements, of course, is color. And looking at this particular picture, for me, that blue, which is a cobalt blue deep, has a richness and a character that is over and above the fact that it's essentially just four panels placed side by side. The editing down of the imagery allows the character of the color and the way that the paint is put down to actually be, I think, an integral and important ingredient to the overall success or failure of the painting. This painting is called Clarence Avenue Blues, and to just give a little bit of background to it, a year or two ago, I used to walk around my neighborhood just to get some exercise, and I came across a fence a few blocks away from my house, and the person that owned the house had obviously started with a relatively low, kind of like a picket fence, and then had, for some reason, built an extension above it. And over the years, you know, the fence had been damaged, and new boards had been placed in. It had been painted over. It had obviously received some weather damage. Sometimes the overpaint was with a different blue color from the original, and it had this incredible patina and richness and oddity to the placement. And because of my personal interest in the geometry and the repetition of elements, you know, I've been naturally attracted to the fence, along with, you know, sidings on buildings and roof tiles, etc., etc. But this fence seemed to have everything going for it. Anyway, I ended up, in essence, sort of using it as a basis. To some extent, I became a realist in that I tried to actually redo the fence. However, in the process, and I had started with all of those inflections. The original painting had multiple grays and blues combined, different paint character and so on. And again, part of the problem was that I realized that the interest was, again, an interplay of those different blues. And for whatever reason it is that I've got this new approach to working, or new interest in working, I wanted to eliminate that, and I gradually overpainted to where you see some subtle changes in the blues, but essentially the picture ends up as an overall singular unit.